What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Everybody Hates Dante. I am your host, Dante. Thank you for joining me. Today, I got a great video planned for you guys. I'm going to be talking to you guys about 5 hip-hop albums from the 2000s that I think you should listen to. I always talk basketball on this channel, but I also like music too. So I'm going to do something a little different today and talk about music. And I feel like this is a pretty good topic because the 2000s were some great times, whether we're talking about music, whether we're talking about fashion, sports, or pop culture, just everything in general. The 2000s were lit. Before I get the video started, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. You'll love it here. If you like what I'm saying, give your boy a like. And if you got something to say, let me know in the comments. Without further ado, we're going to get into the video. 5 hip-hop albums from the 2000s that you should listen to. The first album from the 2000s you should listen to is The Blueprint by Jay-Z. This is a 15-song album released on the same day, 9/11. Released the same day those planes hit the World Trade Center. And it was recorded at the famous Baseline Studio in New York City. There's a lot to love when it comes to this album, but for me, what I love so much is the production. This is phenomenal production from Kanye, Just Blaze, Timbaland, and Bink. With this album, Jay-Z literally set the blueprint for the sound of the new era. Jay-Z has always had the skill of knowing what his listeners wanted to hear, and on this album, it was no different. He was like a master chef, throwing in a little bit of everything to create a dish that could satisfy everybody's palate. He had the pop anthems, you feel me, that everybody could recognize, like H to the Izzo and Girls, Girls, Girls. He had the club bangers, like Jigga That Nigga and Hola Ovito. He had the street songs like You Don't Know and The Ruler's Bag, and hip-hop classics with Heart of the City and Take Over. Jay-Z on this album had everything every rapper should aspire to have. Bars, hits, delivery, and production from start to finish. Some of my favorite tracks on this album are You Don't Know, Heart of the City, and Song Cry. Song Cry is like one of my favorite Jay-Z songs of all time. I really think this album stood the test of time and has great replay value. I come back to this album very often if I want to listen to some Jay-Z. I personally think it's his best album. This is one of the undoubted classics of the 21st century, and probably one of the biggest reasons why Jay-Z will go down as one of the greatest to do it. Great ear for beats, one of the smoothest flows, and at this time, he was spitting better than just about anybody else. The second album from the 2000s I think you should listen to is B by Common. And this is an 11-song album that was released May 24th, 2005 and executively produced by Kanye West. The first thing I think of when I listen to this album is how soulful it is. And I think that works really well with Common and his style. Like I said, Kanye West is the executive producer for this album. And he does a phenomenal job of just captivating that sound that works so well with Common. I do think this album is criminally underrated, and I really don't know why. I feel when people think of Common, they think of something boring, and they're not trying to hear that. But I do think this album definitely is worth a listen, and maybe it'll change your mind about Common as a rapper as well. And I also don't think people understand the magic that Kanye and Common create. I feel like they're a great match, and they complement each other very well. Not only this album, but the work that they've done in the past. You should go check it out sometimes. They make magic. In the interview with All Hip Hop, Common talked about the concept of the album title being called B. He says, I named it B to be who you are, man, and be able to be in the moment and not try too hard. B is another way of saying just do without trying hard. Like I said, natural and be true to the core of who you are. In this album, I just wanted to be, and not just go and exist as just an artist, not worried about the past. Nonetheless, a phenomenal album, and I definitely think you should listen to it if you haven't. The third album from the 2000s I think you should listen to is Man on the Moon by Kid Cudi. Now this was the debut album for Kid Cudi. This was an 18-song project that released September 15th, 2009. I've always known about Kid Cudi, but I never really listened to any of his music until one day, I don't know why. You feel me? I just went to Kid Cudi on Apple Music and listened to Man on the Moon, and I was very impressed. And for a while, that was the album I was listening to like every single day. I wasn't listening to anything else but that album. I really do like the way the album was set up, man. It's kind of like a story. As soon as you get done with the intro, you have Common, ironically, as the narrator of this project. and it's kind of like getting you ready for like this story he's gonna tell you in the whole album. So I think that's pretty cool. Some of my favorite tracks on this album are Soundtrack to My Life, banger. Pursuit of Happiness, love that song. The way that this album touched me is unlike any other. It felt so authentic and so relatable, man. I just remember being in the point of my life where I was just overwhelmed with so many thoughts and just all these struggles. But then I found this album and that kind of made things a lot more easier for me. And I was just so shocked and so surprised how much I related to his music. Feel me? Some of the same shit that I'm going through, a world famous rapper could be going through as well. Cudi may not be the most lyrical, he may not be the most technical, but he knows how to relate to people. And I think that's why a lot of people like him. He's not nothing he is. He's 100% him. He's true to his form. And I think that, alongside him being able to articulate how he feels and make that into a good song that all the other kids in the world who have stuff going on in their lives can listen to and know that things are going to get better, man, I think that's what it's all about. The narration by Common gives the album an epic feel. And even though it's a long album, it's so easy to listen to it over and over and over again, because I'm guilty of doing that. The fourth album from the 2000s I think you should listen to is TM 101 by Young Jeezy. Now this is a 19-song project, which is also his debut project, released July 26, 2005. This is what I think of when I think of trap music. What I love so much about Jeezy is he knows he's not the best rapper out there, but he knows his style and he does it so well. This is the definition of a street album. This album was made for the streets. Talking about the hood, life as a hustler, life of the streets, you know, real trap shit. He knew exactly who his audience was, so everything worked out so perfectly. Plus, when it comes to knowing who your audience was, when you got dope producers giving you the great beats, Manny Fresh, Akon, Don Cannon, Shorty Red, Drummer Boy, these the hot producers. They know the sound that the people are looking for. So if you're Jeezy, you come through with your style, the style that only you know how to master, you know who your audience is, plus you got these good beats. I also think this is a very important album in the rise of trap music. Far from the perfect album, and I've said that, Jeezy is far from the perfect rapper. But I think this album showcases down south and introduces the world to trap music, alongside Gucci, T.I. as the pioneers of trap music. My favorite tracks on this album are Go Crazy featuring Jay-Z, fire song, Standing Ovation, Gangsta Music, and Soul Survivor, son. Man, Soul Survivor was always on the radio, bruh. Always on the radio, playing like 20 times a day. You feel me? That came out when I was in 3rd grade. I still remember it, and I still know that song word for word, bar for bar. How can I forget, man? Jeezy's the ad-lib king. True, yeah! True. Nah, this is a really good album, you feel me? Great trap album. Like I said, him, Gucci, T.I., pioneers of the trap music, and yeah, moving on to the next album. The 5th album from the 2000s I think you should listen to is The Lost Tapes by Nas. Now this was a compilation album released September 23rd, 2002. In order to understand The Lost Tapes, you have to understand the last few years of Nas's career. So before the release of his 3rd album, I Am, which was planned to be a 2-disc double album, he got leaked on the internet and he had to start from scratch. He had to record new material for 2 single albums rather than the double album he intended to do. The songs that were originally made for that album were put on The Lost Tapes, Nostradamus, and I Am, the new I Am that he had to record since his stuff got leaked. And so we lost what likely would have been the greatest 2-disc CD of all time in hip-hop. I Am was originally meant to be a concept album about the rise and fall of Nostradamus, but with the leak, songs were taken off and new ones were added on. And then the label forced Nas into making the incredibly rushed Nostradamus, released less than 7 months after the release of I Am. So for Nas, the last few years were tough. He wanted to come out with a double album and he got leaked and had to come out with 2 single albums, and that kind of messed his flow up. So the songs that he was initially going to put on I Am, some got scrapped and some got put on this compilation album, The Lost Tapes. So now we're here, the release of The Lost Tapes as a compilation album. But I think it still works. And I'm kind of upset that this was put out as a compilation album instead of an official release. Because like I said, I think it works very well. There's some incredible storytelling on this album, and I think that's what I like so much about it. In the song Fetus, he tells a story about the point of view of a child in his mother's womb. Yeah, I definitely think you should listen to that. Nas is a great storyteller, but at this point I think we all know that. But he's also great when he's just reminiscing about his youth in the ghetto over jazzy, soulful beats. I really do think it's crazy that these were throwaways and B-side recordings. Some of my favorite songs on this album are Do Rags, My Way, Papa Was a Player, and Purple. Purple is a song where Nas is expanding his mind while smoking weed, and it's my favorite song on the album personally. You have that drum loop and that sweet piano, and then you have Nas rapping over it so effortlessly. This is a phenomenal album, and if you haven't heard it, I definitely think you should. Seriously, if you haven't heard any of these albums, you should go listen to them and let me know what you think of them. If you have heard any of these albums, how do you like them? So let me know in the comments. Once again, like, and if you're new, subscribe, and we out of here. Peace out, family.